Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 19, Query Basics, How to Attract the Attention of the Right Agents and Publishers. I am Donna Carbone, and I am joined by Hope Gibbs. Hello, Hope. How are you?
I am great, Donna. How are you?
I am doing well. I am loving this beginning taste of spring.
Oh, I am too. It's so beautiful here, despite the pollen that we have.
Yeah.
But this spring is especially exciting for you because Donna is getting ready to launch her second book into the world. Donna, congratulations.
I am. Thank you so much. 13 more days of Lies and Honey will be out into the world. So I am super excited.
So the second time around, is it sweeter, more terrifying, or you feel like you got a little bit of a handle on it?
You know what? Honestly, it was terrifying. And it was like this for the first book too, until I started getting a few reviews come in, and the reviews have been favorable. So I can kind of breathe a sigh of relief and think, okay, people do like this book. It's not going to come out and people, it's going to bomb. So,
And just from my perspective, it looks like you're getting a lot of early reviews.
I am getting a lot of early reviews. I did something this time around that I didn't do last time, and that was to join a NetGalley co-op. And basically, a bunch of authors come together and pay for NetGalley because it can be a little pricey on an indie author budget. And so I've gotten a fair amount of reviews from there, as well as Susie approved book tours will start pretty soon. And just word of mouth. My ARC team from last time came through for me again.
And that's not the only exciting news that you have going on. We both kind of have something exciting. Would you like to tell everyone about that?
Sure. Both of us have become finalists for the Chanticleer International Book Awards. It's gone through several levels. So we were both shortlisted and then we were both longlisted, then shortlisted. Then we got to the semifinalist round and we made it to the finalist round. So I'm keeping fingers crossed. Hope's book is in the romance category and mine is in literary and contemporary fiction. So good luck to both of us.
Yes, I love the fact that we're not competing against each other as well. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about, books, obviously, but something this month that we're both doing a little differently. I read this book a few weeks ago, but we're both reading nonfiction books.
Yeah.
So, Donna, you want to tell us what your nonfiction read is?
Sure. Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matt Perry. I actually am listening to this on audio, which I typically don't do. I'm not really an audiobook person. But boy, is this haunting.
Yeah. I have not read that one yet.
It's nice to hear his voice too. It's his story and it's in his voice as it absolutely should be. And honestly, like having lost my sister last year, I bet this, maybe not right now because it might be so raw, but I bet this is comforting for his own friends and family, just to have his voice telling his story. Like what a gift that is.
Yeah. And I am reading, my book is Rex Chapman. It's Hard for Me to Live with Me. And I don't know if you are familiar with Rex Chapman, but he was the king of University of Kentucky basketball. And he was in college when I was a senior in high school. And everyone just looked up to him because he grew up in Owensboro. And then he went on to the NBA. And then he had kind of a little bit of a downfall. He got involved in some prescription drugs, and it totally changed his life. But then he's come out on the other side, and he's like so popular over on Twitter, and he has really become an inspiration. And it's so funny because ironically, I mentioned Rex Chapman in my book, Where the
Oh,
Grass Grows
wow.
Blue, because he's just that big of a celebrity in the
Mhm.
bluegrass state. But so yeah, it's interesting that
Oh,
you
that's
and I are
cool.
both reading nonfiction books.
I know we do a lot of parallel things, Hope.
We actually do, because for Authors Talking Bookish, our Instagram, one week Donna is in charge, and the next week I'm in charge. And
Mhm.
a lot of times we accidentally are posting what the other one is going to post on their week, and
Yeah.
we can talk about it.
No,
So
that's okay.
let's talk about this episode. Donna, do you want to give us a little bit of an intro what we're going to discuss today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about query basics today. So you've got this manuscript and you've sent it out to betas and they've given you the green light. What do you do next? I know when I first decided, you know what, I'm going to throw my book out there, put it in the ring and try to publish it. This was the aspect of publishing that scared me the most. I had no idea what to write in a query letter. I had no idea where to find agents. Um, and I actually took a course called Query Mastery to help me learn this stuff. But you don't really need a course. There's so many different sources out there. So we're going to talk to you from the basics, like what are some key terms, all the way down to sharing with you our own query letters that got us our book contracts.
Yeah. And so the idea of this letter, it is ideally one page. You don't want to go over it. And it's separated into 3 to 4 paragraphs. And each paragraph, they're keys that you want to try and hit. But the whole point is to get an agent or a publisher interested enough in your story that they're going to request either a partial, which means it could be 20 pages, 25 pages, maybe 50, or a full request. And it's a daunting experience. You know, a lot of books you're looking at, it's an 80 to 95,000 word manuscript, and you have one page to make your book, stand out from the rest. So Donna, what's the first key ingredient in writing this very, very important letter?
Well, you mentioned partials, and I just wanted this was something I was not aware of when I started querying. Some of the more famous authors from the bigger imprints, right? Some of them will only ask for 5 pages. So that means that your first 5 pages of your manuscript really needs to be tight. You need it well edited. You need a strong hook. You want people at the end of those 5 pages wanting more because you only have 5 pages to sell to the agent essentially. So I think for the letter itself, there are 2 different things that you need to learn. You need to learn the difference between a pitch and a summary. A pitch is a one line, grab your point of view. It's like, I gotcha. It should include the inciting incident, the conflict, who the character is, and kind of a little bit about their journey and the stakes. What are at stake? What's at stake? Like, what happens if this doesn't work out the way the character needed it to? And so that should really be in one sentence.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you probably are going to want to begin your query letter with.
Yeah.
Whereas a summary, like a book jacket summary, you should do that as well. Um, that should be more like 150 to 200 words and should only include the first 25% of your novel. Shouldn't
Yeah.
go beyond that. You don't want to spoil.
So, yeah, the pitch is a simple elevator pitch. The pitch for my first book, Where the Grass Grows Blue, it's one woman's journey to accept her past or risk losing a second chance at love in a small Kentucky town.
Mhm.
My current book that I'm working on is Alabama Rush Meets a Country Club. So you really need to be thinking of that, putting that in at the beginning. But before we start with anything, the most important thing is this needs to look like a professional letter,
Mhm.
meaning you need to know exactly, the right spelling. Spelling is key, and also
Yeah.
knowing how to address the agent or the publisher. Is it Mr.? Is it Miss? Is it Ms.? Is it Mrs.?
Mm.
Those are little things, and that is at the beginning. Because if
Right.
you don't get that right, they're not going any further than their name.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the information that you're going to need in order to write the query letter is obviously the pitch. You're going to want a summary because you're going to go into a summary to kind of hook them further. Um, I, in the course that I took, the query mastery course, they asked us to come up with a list of like 10 keywords and to make sure that those keywords were somewhere in the query letter as well. Um, you need to know your genre, know your niche. Don't list 5 different genres, pare it down to 1 or 2 at most. Um, you need to know your audience. They want to know who your audience will be, and they will, some of them actually ask you for that, um, and the word count. So you need those things.
Yeah. So the first paragraph is basically an introduction. And you also, if you can somehow personally connect with that agent, if you've um, maybe you pitch them at a pitch event, or they've asked you to send them a query when you're ready, mention that. You need to
Mhm.
remind them that you have a personal connection. If you are doing this cold, look and find out, research them, find out what kind of books they're looking for. And you can even reference that into saying, I know that you're a lover of complex family dynamics. And that way you can bring them in. You need to have something that can be personalized, because that first paragraph needs to change on whoever you are actually sending the letter to. Did you do that too, Donna?
Yeah, I did. You know what? I think one of the sources that I highly recommend, well, actually I have two sources that I highly recommend for that. One is Manuscript Wishlist. Um, because when you go on to, so Manuscript Wishlist is a website, but it's also a URL that X uses, formerly Twitter. Um, and agents will go on and use that hashtag when their wish list has changed. And so basically, what they do is they give a list of the kinds of books that they like. They give a list of what they've sold, and they give a list of what they're currently looking for, in addition to submission guidelines. So you can find their interest there. I would also Google them and kind of
Yeah.
read some articles that they've written, interviews, that kind of thing.
And then another thing that I used a lot was Publishers Marketplace. Now,
Mhm.
you do have to subscribe to that, but it was also a good way of seeing what the current trends were.
Mhm.
What those agents, what kind of books were they selling? And so that's something else. So after you have the proper greeting,
Yep.
you're telling the agent why you're actually querying them. Then the
Mhm.
body of the query is that summary that
Right.
that summarizes your book. And so those are very important to kind of follow that standard. You know, that's a standard query letter. And
Right.
then the final paragraph, you want to give a little bit about your bio,
Mm.
about background. But if you really aren't an expert, I did not have a master's in creative writing. It really wasn't necessary for me to tell them that I was I had a BA from Western Kentucky University.
Mm.
That's not something. Now, with my second book, when I'm going to query, I will say that I am an award winning author. That's
Right.
something that they're going to want to know. And it's especially important with nonfiction, because a nonfiction query, you really need to tell them why you're an expert in this area.
Yeah. Yeah, and one piece of advice that I got is, don't feel like you need to You need to make up things or, embellish anything that you've done to impress them. So if it's your first book, you just simply say, "This is my first novel and I'd like to publish it with you because." Um, and so, you will build credibility along the way. But, don't put something in there that is not verifiable.
And the other thing, especially with debut writers, you may have gotten great reviews from a critique partner or, a beta reader or your friend. Do not put that in there unless you got a review from, a major author. That's not something that they want to know. But one of the most important, and to me, the most daunting part of any query is the comps. Donna,
Mhm.
can you talk to us about what do I mean when I say comps?
Yeah, so a comp is a comparative title to your book. And it doesn't mean that I think one of my sort of misinformation about comps is that my book had to be exactly like the book that I had for a comp. And I learned the hard way that that's not the case. Um, Sometimes a comp could be a book that stylistically is like yours. Sometimes the tropes are the same. Sometimes the way that it's told is similar, or the general plot or the general conflict, but you want to include comps that have similar aspects to your books. And you can even say that in the letter. You could say, like, my current book that is coming out later on this month, my comps for this book would be the hours. And why can't I forget why can't I remember the other one? But the hours, my book, the subject matter is not like the hours, but the point of view and the way it's stylistically written is like the hours.
Yeah.
I would say Perennials would be another comp for mine. It's a family story about sisters and, mother-daughter relationships kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so if that's the case, then you point out the things that are similar in your comps to your own book.
Yeah, I struggled so much with comps. And comps, it's just a basic it's an idea. When you go into a bookstore, where will this book be placed? It
Mhm.
does not have to be identical. It can be, like you said, just the style. Or with my book, because I was in Southern fiction, things like that. And, you don't always have to just use a book. You can
Mm.
also use television or a movie comp, which is what I'm going to do with my second book. So don't get so wrapped up on comps, but also don't sit there and say, oh, well, my book is so unique. There's nothing like it. That
Mm.
is not the answer that they want. This is a business. They need to
Mm.
know where they can place your book.
They also need to know who your audience is going to be. So, I mean, The Hours is a very different audience than the Matthew Perry book that I mentioned earlier. So that's the kind of thing that they're hoping to understand in the comps that you choose and you share.
Yeah. And again, comps, don't let that be your stumbling block. And Donna, there was something that I ran across when I was doing just some little research back on this, because it's been a while since I did my query. I
Mhm.
ran across an article in Writer's Digest
Uh-huh.
about an author who wrote his query letter before he wrote his book, because it helped him
Mm.
see his book and see all the he had the idea, but before he started writing the book, he realized he had plot holes. And so he wrote the query letter and then wrote the book. Now, we're not saying do not do this, don't send it to anyone. This is a writing technique that can help you if you're kind of stuck at the beginning of your book.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I have actually heard of that before, or I've heard of people writing the book jacket summary ahead of time or writing the pitch ahead of time just to have a clear direction, like on where they're going.
Yeah. And
That's
it's
neat.
very important. Again, if you are a fiction writer, you have to have a complete manuscript before you send your book to a agent or to a publisher.
Yeah. And we have on our show notes different places that you can find comps. Um, the easiest one is really just going on Amazon or Google and Googling, women's fiction, mother daughter books, and it'll come up with a list of books and then read through to see if you don't know what comps would be for yours. Another one would be I tried GPT. I've never tried that for comps, but I would imagine that would be a good one. Um, One thing I wanted to ask you, Hope, is how did you keep track of all of your queries that you sent out?
So again, I was very new at it, but I kept a spreadsheet, a very
Mhm.
detailed spreadsheet that was the name of the agent or the publisher that I'd sent it to, when I
Mhm.
sent it, what their guidelines. Sometimes they will not respond, or they say,
Mhm.
if you have not heard from us in 30 days, consider that a no.
Yeah.
And then, whenever I would get an email or any kind of update, I would go back and then I also printed every single email that I had sent. But here's
Mhm.
the other key that I think that I'm glad that I listened to. I didn't send out 30 queries the first time around. You
Mhm.
kind of want to do it in waves. Maybe send out 10. And don't send them out to your 10 like, oh, these are my dream agents. Sprinkle it, because
Yeah.
here's the great thing with these letters, whatever kind of rejection, or if you get a request, each rejection is telling you something, and that way you can tweak that letter. Okay, so maybe my letter, maybe the pitch isn't strong enough, maybe I should change this, maybe I should do that. That
Mm.
way you're not sending out 30 of maybe possibly not a good letter. You can tweak it and send them out in batches of tens. Did you do that, Donna?
I did early on. Later on, I sent in batches of 25 to wait to see because sometimes they take a really long time to come back. Um, but yeah, I think that's wise advice is to send them out in smaller batches. The other thing that I think is really wise too is, what Hope said about don't send them to, the top 10 agents on your wish list. Send them the advice I use is the advice I use to my students when they're applying to colleges. Send them to comfort schools that you're going to get in. Send them, in this case, agents. Send them to agents that would be a good fit for you. Send them to agents that you think your book would be a really good fit for, and then send them to some challenging agents that you think there's no way in hell that they're going to accept my book, because you never know.
Yeah,
You
you
don't
never
know
know.
unless you try.
Yeah, well, Donna, we could talk about this all day long, I feel like, because
Mhm.
it is such a, to me, again, it was one of the biggest obstacles I had, just writing one page, one letter.
Yeah.
But we do have to wrap this up. So, as our teacher and as giving out our homework, what is
Mhm.
our due now?
Okay, so for your due now, you want to check out some of the websites that we mentioned on our show notes. Manuscript wish list, publishers marketplace. There is a website called Query Shark. If you're looking into how to write a query, they have some great critiques there. Make sure that you are reading the submissions for each of the agents carefully, and you are doing every single thing they ask you exactly the way they ask it to you, whether that is font size or send an attachment, don't send an attachment. Make sure you read those very carefully. And we do have 3 free downloads this week on our show notes on our website, and 2 of them are query letters. And then a third one is a spreadsheet template for you to use. You can copy it and paste it and use it for when you send out to query letters to agents.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everyone they can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, and YouTube. And we are at authorstalkingbookish.com. And before we go, Donna, what can we be looking forward to in our next episode?
Hope and I are very excited about our next episode because we get to interview the lovely Jill Hannah Anderson, who is a 4-time author, and she just had a new book release, and she is a very dear friend to both of us. So we hope you will tune in.
Yeah, it's so special having her on because she was one of the first, I would say, established authors who really took both of us under her wing. And we were so grateful and so excited for that episode.
Yeah. Well,
So,
thank you, everyone.
yes, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.